and welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 94. Connor, episode 94. Guess who was number 94? Nobody. It's again, nobody. There's no more players. We're opening like this for the next 6 episodes after this. I'm Evan Marinofsky. That is Connor Ryan. Connor, what is up?
Evan, doing well. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. People are going to be pissed I said that and not said doing great.
Vibes are off now.
Vibes are off. I was working this afternoon watching the Red Sox on my laptop. We're recording this Thursday afternoon, so I was watching it in the afternoon. And sick watching Shohei Ohtani. For the Red Sox, though, not great. That team stinks. That team is brutal. They couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat. Hot start, but we have real things to talk about, and that's the Bruins, right? Things are not great in the land of the Bruins. Really not great. And the big question everyone's asking around here, are they done? Are the Bruins done? So Connor, are they done?
Evan, I don't think so. It's not good. I'm going to preface by saying it ain't great. You know, it's like when you're asking if someone can like salvage the car and like it's pretty banged up. Like it's gonna take a lot of work. Is it like just a heap of like metal? No, but yeah. But you look at where the Bruins are, and not just the fact that they've been outplayed in pretty much every area of the ice, but you're also looking at the personnel and who you have out there. It's easy to, I think, draw maybe not comparisons, but the Bruins have been in this position before. Granted, it's been a long time in 2011, right, where they've dropped 2 games in a row. But again, you can either buy into the fact that it's hockey and you don't know what exactly you're going to get out of a series till you drop a game on home ice. But it's also tough when you kind of draw those comparables, though, because you look at the Bruins, then you at least have like a full complement of players. You don't know you do know what you're going to have in game 3, and it's not going to be Hampus Lindholm, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But between that, the fact that you're going to another goalie in Jeremy Swayman, which we'll also talk about, but you don't know what exactly you're getting from him. Again, has Omark been the problem? No. Could Swayman be good? Yeah, but also not Tuukka Rask or Tim Thomas, right? Like you're going into this with a looming, I think, question mark in terms of what the baseline production you're going to get from your goaltending. And then beyond just those factors, you just look at the way the Bruins have played. It's almost like a damn if you don't in terms of what you're expecting out of this group, because, you know, some people are like, oh, maybe they have to be more aggressive. Well, it's like, well, then you're playing into what Carolina does best, right? Which is take advantage of every opportunity and bury them. But then you're also looking at the way the Bruins play, where, you know, especially in their own zone, where they kind of give up the blue line and kind of, you know, pack things in. That's all well and good. That's how you limit grade A chances. But I don't know. The last few games, Jacob Slavin and Tony DeAngelo and those guys are ripping shots from up the top there. And what do you know? They're deflecting and they're getting past goalies. So it's kind of, this is what the issue is with the Carolina Hurricanes, right? Is that they're a pain in the ass to like get a good game plan against, because even the kind of the best laid plans can kind of go to the wayside against a team like this. And that's what you're seeing, at least through the first 2 games.
Yeah. So I don't think they're done, but they're close. That's the thing. This is the issue, right? Like, I think and when we said this on the post-game show Wednesday night, we've said it to each other off air. I think if they just played like as poorly as they did in game 2, right? We'd say they're not in a great spot, but you're going home. You've got a full roster. You look healthy. You're not in a good spot, but you're not in a terrible spot. You lose Hampus Lindholm. That changes everything. To me, that is the defining reason why I look at this team and I say, I don't really have a lot of hope. And we'll get to the optimism and the hope and what we think is going to happen the rest of the series later. But you look at the Hampus Lindholm injury, I look at that and I say, that's a huge loss. And he's not coming back. You can tell.
Yeah,
the way he had to be carried off the ice, like that's not an injury you like come back in game 5 from. You know, it just isn't. And that's nothing that's not his fault. Like it's an injury. And we'll get into the ramifications of now the injury history with Hampus Lindholm. Like we'll get into that over the summer when we really have nothing to talk about. But to me, I look at that injury and I say, that's why I look at the series. And I'm not saying they're done, but they're pretty close. And they're coming home too. Like these were 2 road games, right? Like that's the wild part. They were 2 road games in Carolina. You could ideally think, hey, they come home, they win both games in Boston. Like you met, Ty Anderson mentioned 2011. Right. Like I was in like 6th grade. So I wasn't exactly like having like super analysis about all these things. I know I'm going to make people feel so old and I love it. But back then everyone was thinking, oh my God, the Bruins are done after 2 games against the Canucks they were the freaking President's Trophy winners. Granted, different team, different time, all that. There's still the chance the Bruins could go back and win 2 games, but now you're without your second best defenseman. Like that's a freaking huge loss.
Yeah. And it's one of those things too, where you could, again, if you want to draw a comparable of like Nathan Horton, what have you in that, like that seems like a completely different scenario where in terms of, I just think that's short-sighted in terms of like, oh, it's going to be the same thing. They're going to rally around this. Like, of course they're not pleased that their top pairing defenseman got walloped by Svechnikov, of course. And you hope he's doing well, but you just look at what the personnel is and how you replaced them. Like at least the Bruins in 2011, you put up, I think it was Petraglia, and that line still kept on rolling. And you had, a guy like Sagan and you could slot back into the lineup. Here it's like, all right, who's the next guy up? It's obviously going to be Mike Riley, but you kind of look at where Riley's game was for most of the season, especially against a team like Carolina that likes to pressure the puck carriers and make them force, errors in or miscues in their own zone. Mike Riley's not exactly the guy you want to be slotting as the solution. Again, there could be worse guys out there, but it doesn't give you a lot of confidence, just especially with the way he's been playing. I mean, during that last stretch, the Bruins do not want Mike Riley to be a 7th defenseman. Like, trust me, that's why they signed him to a 3-year deal. They didn't think it was going to be kind of what it's been over the last couple of months, especially. So I think, yeah, when you just look at the depth of the Bruins defense, that's where the biggest concern is. It's just not the fact that Lindholm, just his presence in terms of being a top 4 guy that can log 22 minutes a night. It's, his ability to maybe impact the game offensively. Didn't see it, but at least through the first, 4.5 periods of play. But he's a guy that likes to fire in shots from the point. That could have been of value. His transition game, all those things. He's just an essential part of what the Bruins need to do to beat Carolina. And again, it's not over, but it's one where you just look at kind of the pieces they have to work with now, and it's makes a tough road even tougher. Like there's potholes all over the place now for this team now trying to get through an 0-2 hole against a good team like Carolina.
Yeah, and again, one of those not really a pothole, but someone who was solid but not incredible in those first 2 games was Linus Ullmark. Again, I don't think anyone would say he was the problem in either of those games, but he wasn't, as Bruce Cassidy said after game 2, you needed a save, and he turns to Jeremy Swayman in game 3. Is that the right move?
I think so. I think at this point, again, I agree. I don't think anyone really at this point, at least if you've been watching the games, which it's always funny when you get to the playoffs and, people who don't watch a fucking lick of hockey all of a sudden throw the takes out, and those are what the narratives end up being. But I digress. But it's funny.
I think I know who you're talking about.
But it's one of those things where I don't think you're really seeing a lot of the discourse, the narrative being about Ullmark. It's very easy to put all the blame on the goaltending, which I think we've all seen that before. But I think anyone who's watched these games realizes that, again, yeah, would you have liked a save or 2 there? Like people look at like the Trocheck goal in game 1, not great, but at that point you're pretty much in garbage time. Like I wouldn't put a lot of these momentum shifting goals against him, like the Aho deflection, all of these things. What are you going to do in those situations? But that being said, you look at just the momentum of what a 7-game series is and how you can try to manufacture or get a spark of momentum going your way. Having a guy like Swayman in net can't hurt at this point. You're down 0-2, you're going back home. Swayman's a guy who, granted, has not really been playing all that well over the last month, but who knows, man? Like you put this guy in here and it could go on another heater. Like that's at this point, what do you really have to lose? At this point, if he doesn't do well, then you're 0-3 and you're really up the creek. If he does well, then what do you know? You have a spark and you can kind of go from there. It's 2-1 and you build off of it. So at this point, I think it can't hurt, right? That's kind of, I think, what my sentiment is on it.
Do I get a pat on the back for kind of guessing this correctly? Remember, I said at the beginning,
there
I
you
said,
go.
Hey,
write it down.
Ullmark's going to get the first 2 games. Whoop, I bathe in my losses,
yes,
but I got to bathe in my wins too. I can't pick one over the other. Yes, again, that's kind of just how they trended all year. And I don't know why you would change that. Now, granted, again, Omar was not outstanding in the first 2 games, but he also wasn't terrible. So, as you said, what do you have to lose? You have nothing to lose at this point, which is we're going to get into the lineup changes in a second here. There's a lot of things in the lineup where it's like, you're not losing anything. You're already down 2-0. This team you're playing looks light years better than you. They've owned you for, I would say, like, of the first 120 minutes of the series, the first 110. I'll give the Bruins the last 10 minutes in this in game 2 because they actually looked like they did at the end of the regular season. So I'll at least give them that. Lineup changes. So there's going to be some big ones. I think, to me, and this is one that is unpopular. I think it's people are going to, we have to stop. We have to get back into serious mode here. We're talking about really serious subjects. To me, and everyone's going to get on me about this, I think there's a need for Josh Brown in this series. Again, you have nothing to lose. You're down 2-0. Like, again, a lot of people are going to say, what are you just going to keep games away now? No. Here's why. And I'm going to sound like I'm 107 years old giving this take, but it's true. Did they have anyone who could respond to Andrei Svechnikov in game 2? No, not a person. Frederick would try to go out and make some hits. He'd fall, just not much. He's not a huge guy. He's more of a pest. And again, maybe Anton Bleed provides that. I mean, that could be a more reasonable solution. But I look at a guy like Josh Brown. Now, granted, do I like the matchup of Josh Brown in the defensive zone against anyone in Carolina's top 9? No, I don't. But I think there's a level of physicality that the Bruins kind of need. And try it. Again, you have nothing to lose. And maybe we're overlooking it too much. Maybe they can really come back in this. But something to turn the tide. Something, I mean, again, to me, the Svechnikov hit on Lindholm was one thing because, again, at the end of the day, it was a clean hit. Like, you can make that hit. It's fine.
Right.
But what irked me a little more was the knee-on-knee with McAvoy. Because that was a little different, right? You can play that off and say it was accidental. Maybe it was. As I said on the post game show, like, no idea. Like, I'm not out there. You easily could have not seen him. But you almost like tear the ACL of the Bruins' number 1 defenseman. I don't know. I just think that at the end of the day, you need someone who's out there who can impose something. And again, I think if you were to put Brown in, you'd take Clifton out, which, again, Clifton's been fine. I don't think Clifton's been an issue. So you're kind of taking Clifton out at a bad time. What other lineup moves would you make?
Yeah, I think it'd probably be obviously beyond Riley, which is going to happen. I think you're probably looking at adding a little bit more heft or at least more physicality, right, up front, which I think is probably what they might do because I can see the merit for a guy like Brown. I think if they like lose game 3 and like they get knocked around again, then Brown's definitely going in because
Brown's going in.
It's going to be.
They're bringing McQuaid out of the player development system. They're putting him on the ice.
It's going to be a Mother's Day massacre for that man. A matinee Mother's Day massacre. I got that headline all set for that. Yep. But it's one of those things where if it gets to that point, I could see him going in. But also, I feel like the most Bruins thing ever would be to them to maybe not overreact, but to be like, we gotta have a guy like Brown in there, and he's out there and gets like toasted by
it's coming.
Like that's the only issue. So like,
and if you put like Forbert with Brown too,
yeah, it's not great. Like that's not exactly what you're looking for. So I could see them instead of maybe adding more heft to the blue line with him, then you add a guy like Bleed, maybe Wagner. Just someone that adds a little bit more physicality that can mix things up. I think Bleed you have to put in because whether it's just him just being more physical or just being a pain in the ass, that guy's going to do something to piss off someone in Carolina's tops. Yeah, everyone. So I think maybe that's the route they take in terms of we have to add, a bit more thump somewhere. So might as well do it in an area that we probably need to tweak anyway in terms of probably that bottom 6. So I don't know if Frederick's going to be back in the lineup after that game he had on Wednesday where he pretty much got benched. So if we get to game 4 and it's a 3-0 hole, then I think Brown's going in. But I think you're at least looking at maybe another tweak or 2 in that bottom 6 in terms of just getting someone with a little bit more physicality in there against Carolina.
Oh yeah, and again, I mean, I wonder if even like McLaughlin would have a place somewhere. I mean, again, he just hard worker, can get in hard on the forecheck, physicality, stuff like that. I wonder if he has a spot. I don't know. I mean, again, like, it's tough to take Foligno out of the lineup. Feels like that's going to have to happen, even though he hasn't been he hasn't been like way worse than he has been all year. But I think still you'd rather have Bleed in there than Foligno. And again, if you want to move Curtis Lazar out, again, there just needs to be some shakeups. That's the other thing. It just has to be a little bit of shakeups. Also, Tomáš Nosek couldn't buy a goal right now. We mentioned people, though, who need to step up. And we're talking about, fourth line guys. We've talked about, some guys on D. But who to you really needs to step up, who is definitely going to be in the lineup on Friday night?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of names you can pick from.
Yeah, that's few.
That's for sure. But I'd probably look at one guy as Charlie Coyle, who I think we talked about as being a guy that you looked at the way he played 2019. You look at the way he played down the stretch in March and early April with that third line. It looked like it was primed to be a matchup nightmare for any team, right? Like when he's playing at that level and he's possessing the puck and they're getting easier matchups further down the lineup, they could pot 2-3 goals regularly in a game. It's kind of like what you're seeing from the Stahl line. And granted, the Stahl line's a fantastic defensive line and they're shutting down Bergeron, but on the other end of the ice, they're also capitalizing on chances. Like they're burying 5-on-5 goals as well. If you even got that part of what Coyle and that line can bring, it would be a huge difference maker, because you're going to need more guys to step up, because even if, let's say, you win 1 or 2 in Boston, you're going to have to come back to Carolina. And you know what? Rod Brind'Amour is sticking the Stahl line on Bergeron the entire time once again. So whether it's that or the fact that even, Carolina has so much depth that they could add, the Aho line to Halla's line and score a goal against them. They have 2, capable D pairs where obviously Slavin's their best player, but, Pesce and Brady Shea, pretty good second pair. And I think they stick those on whichever one that Slavin doesn't have. So they've got multiple ways to match up and frustrate you in your top 6. So you desperately need that Coyle line and a guy like Craig Smith to start generating more chances, because you have to land punches somehow. And the only way to really do it right now, at least, is getting those easier matchups further down the depth chart, because right now they're locking you down in that top 6.
Oh, you need it. You need it. And you're 100% right about Coyle. To me, though, the one player I think who absolutely has to step up is David Pastrnak. I think he has looked not himself at all in these first 2 games. And you worry that injury is popping back up again and that's affecting him. And you always see, whenever he starts to go into a lull, he starts to shooting the puck from everywhere, or, he's just not trying to create plays, being that driver of play that we've come to know so well. And I just look at that and I say, that needs to change. Now, they tried moving him up to that top line in the second half of game 2. I mean, it generated some offense at the end. I wouldn't say it did a ton. I still think you go back to your normal lines for the start of game 3, at least. If you want to move it around then sure. But he's got to be better. And I think, again, like that missed when he tried to dodge the hit on their first goal, that was terrible. Like there's just little things that there's just no effort. And even on that goal, he just kind of stood in the middle of the zone. He didn't pick up. It was Aho who ended up tipping it, correct?
Yes, the second goal. Yeah.
Or and he just missed him. So again, I just little things like that just drive you nuts. That's what wins and loses you playoff series. And I think for a guy like him, you need him bad. And also again, the power play kind of goes without saying. So I think he's the one who you need right now. And you need him to be kind of that elite player. Cause again, one knock on the Hurricanes, we talked about this a little bit before the series, is they don't really have a superstar. The Bruins do have some superstars. They got to play like superstars though. And you're seeing that in those first 2 games. So it all boils down to this. This one big word called optimism. Is there optimism? And do you think, like we said, are they? We're both saying they're not done. You seem to have a little more optimism than me, but do you actually think they will bounce back?
I mean, I think you have to keep that level of confidence going with the team in terms of just getting back on home. I think the biggest thing is just the fact that they can finally dictate the matchups, which again, you're pushing that issue further down in terms of getting to maybe game 5 of, is it going to be, 2-2? Are they going to be up 3-1? Or, I mean, they may not even get back to Carolina, right, for game 5, but that's an issue you push further down the docket in terms of what you want to deal with. Because at the very least now, the Bruins can dictate play a little bit more. We'll be curious to see if Cassidy rolls with Martian, Bergeron, and Pastrnak again, which again makes you very top heavy. But if they're that good, that I think they're on the ice for 2 goals for, I think, for the Bruins in that game, or I think that limited amount of time they had. So at the very least, you know what you're going to get with that line. That line has
Yes.
torched Carolina in the past, even when they've put Stahl and those guys on them with Slavin. So maybe you lean heavily on that. The lift you get from being back on home ice. And again, I think it also comes down to Swayman. If he's not sharp and they score 3 goals in the first period, well, that'll do it. And I think that's going to be the most important thing, is just starting strong and getting that first goal, which they had not led once this year against Carolina, which
is wild.
It kind of reminds me of a little bit going into it about Carolina's game 3 down in Raleigh in the 2019 Eastern Conference Final, where that first period, they got nothing from Tuukka Rask. They got nothing past Tuukka Rask, rather. Yes. They had, I think, 20 shots on goal, came out flying. It was probably the best period of hockey they'd played in probably since their first series against, what was it, Washington? They were dynamite. That was the true storm surge they had out there, and got nothing by them, and it broke them. And afterwards, eventually the Bruins little by little just wore them down. And after that game, Rob Bridgemore was like, yeah, we're screwed. We can't beat that. So I think that's if the Bruins come out strong, get shots on net against, I imagine it's Kochetkov. Maybe it could be Freddie Anderson, which we haven't even talked about. That could be even worse. If Freddie Anderson's coming back. But if they, we get to 15 minutes into the first, it's 0-0. The Bruins are out shooting them 15-5, and then Aho deflects a shot past Swayman. Then okay, I think that it's not really going to be groundbreaking analysis, but the first 20 minutes are going to potentially decide how long this Bruins season goes on for, because you need to start strong against this team on home ice.
Completely agree. It all comes down to that hot start. To me, though, I look at this, I think there is some reason for optimism. I don't think they come back, though. I think in the end, I think they lose this series. I know people are not going to love it. That was my initial prediction. I'm sticking with it. I don't see you winning 4 games against a team you've struggled with against so bad this year without one of your top 2 defensemen. I don't see it. I could be totally wrong. It'd be really cool to be proven wrong.
Yes.
In this situation, for the sake of content, at least. But there's not a lot of reason there's not a lot of reasons to fully believe that they're going to bounce back. I think they'll win a game at home. I don't think that they're going to get swept. I mean, the Bruins haven't been swept in forever. It has been
quite some time.
I don't remember the last time they got fully swept. They didn't even get swept in 2017 against the Senators. I'm just kind of racking through my head. They have not gotten swept in I think my lifetime, maybe. So I don't know. I don't see them getting swept, but I do see them probably losing this series. So yeah, not terrific, not great. Tough way to end, at least on this episode, but bringing it back up, making it a little bit better. What can people look forward to from you over at BSJ?
Well, Evan, we'll continue to have our daily coverage throughout this playoff run, however long it lasts. So we'll have game reports, previews, video breakdowns, columns, features, all that good stuff every day on the site. So please subscribe at bostonsportsjournal.com. You want to follow me on Twitter, you can do that at ConorRyan_93.
And we joke about, there being nothing to talk about during the offseason. There will be quite a lot.
There'll be quite a lot.
There's a lot
going on.
There's a lot of reasons to keep obviously following, listening, reading, watching, all those things. As everyone knows who's followed us for a while, and thank you to them. They know that we don't ever stop. It continues. There are lots of things to talk about in the offseason, and there will be this year. Especially, I'm not going to say why, because that's going to be even worse. So I'm not going to say why. But there's a lot to talk about. Anyways, I'll quit while I'm ahead. Anyways, that is Conor Ryan, Evan Marinofsky. You Poke the Bear listeners, have a great rest of your day.